Actress Diane Keaton has died in California. She was 79 years old. Keaton's family made the announcement but did not specify a cause.
Diane Keaton did not die because of pneumonia. At least that's what the last doctor who examined her body said. He said there was something happening inside her that he had never seen in 30 years of working as a doctor. A series of body reactions that were not found in any medical book. A report that was locked away just hours after it was finished. From that moment on, Diane Keaton's death was no longer just a normal medical case, but became the biggest mystery Cedar Sinai had ever kept secret. In Los Angeles medical circles, that night is still talked about as something forbidden. A doctor lost his job, a file went missing, and the final answer was changed to just 2 words: pneumonia. What exactly did the doctor see inside her body? And why did he say that the truth would scare the world forever? Before we start revealing Diane Keaton's final secret, get ready, because what you're about to hear may give you chills. Los Angeles, early morning, October 12, 2025. The western sky still had a thin layer of fog. The streetlights glowed like the breath of a night that hadn't left yet. In the basement of Cedar Sinai Hospital, the autopsy room was quiet, lit only by the cold glow of fluorescent lights bouncing off a metal table. On it was a body covered completely by a thin white sheet. Outside the door, the clock showed 12:48 a.m. The air in the room was thick, almost frozen. Every sound disappeared, except for the dry, slow scratch of a pen on paper. The man sitting beside the table, the main forensic doctor on duty, stayed quiet for a long time. He stared at the blood test results and the lung tissue images on the screen. The pale blue light made shadows on his tired face. According to normal steps, this examination was only meant to confirm how she died. The death certificate had already been signed less than 7 hours before: primary bacterial pneumonia. No other causes. A clean, simple, clear answer. Kept the doctor staring at the results wasn't doubt. It was that the numbers in front of him did not look like any pneumonia case he had seen in 30 years. The body in front of him was Diane Keaton, 79 years old, the famous actress from Annie Hall in The Godfather, a legend of American cinema for over 3 decades. Before her death, her health was said to be fine. She still took morning walks with her 2 dogs, still posted photos on Instagram, still called her daughter in New York. So her sudden death from pneumonia was hard to believe. When the white sheet was pulled back, the room went silent. A pale silver mark appeared on her left shoulder, about 7 centimeters long, flat, cold, and waxy when touched. There was no bruise, no surgery mark, no needle hole. Under direct light, the skin reflected a strange shimmer, faintly coated as if with a thin layer of hard protein. "This looks more like tissue growing back than dying," one technician whispered. His voice was swallowed by the hum of the air vents. The person beside him made a small gesture to stay quiet. When they looked closer, they found small scaly spots scattered around her neck and shoulder, the same area where Diane had surgery to remove skin cancer in the late 1980s. Under the microscope, the skin tissue showed a strange inflammation response. The cells weren't dying, but seemed to be acting wrong, like an old system starting up without warning. "An unusual cell reaction," the doctor wrote in an early note. An hour later, that note disappeared from the official copy. When they opened the lungs, the tissue didn't match the usual pattern of bacterial pneumonia. The color between the 2 lobes was different, not bright red, not dull gray, but a faint pink. Under blue light, certain tissue spots gave off a soft glow, suggesting enzyme activity inside, something only seen in living cells. The young doctor watching whispered, "It's like the body is still trying to heal itself." No one answered. In the forensic notebook, only one pencil line remained. Reaction pattern does not match bacterial spread. Possible immune system response. A short line, but enough to make the entire team stop. According to the Los Angeles Times, Diane Keaton's tissue samples were sealed that night, October 12th, to be sent to Cedar Sinai's lab for testing. But just as the early analysis was about to be uploaded, the report disappeared. The hospital's internal computer system went offline for 45 minutes. No one knew who did it. A nurse working the night shift, Marissa Lott, later told ABC Local News, "We were ready to send the report, but the file was empty. Only the patient's name and timestamp were left." The main doctor walked out, stayed quiet for a while, then said, "Don't put that part in the record." He didn't look at anyone, just said that and left. The next morning, the lab system was locked. The entire forensic team got an internal email telling them to stop sharing data. 2 technicians were moved to other departments. The rest were asked to sign papers promising to keep quiet. The story might have ended there, but Deadline Hollywood later revealed that the original report noted body temperature did not drop following normal body patterns. Usually in older people, body temperature falls quickly within the first 2 hours after death. But with Diane Keaton, it stayed at 33 degrees even after 5 hours, a rare thing. Forensic experts call this a delayed enzyme reaction, usually only seen in severe immune system or metabolism problems. Before the report could be checked, all related data was marked family confidential. When reporters from People and Variety asked questions, the Cedar Sinai spokesperson simply said, "No cause of death other than pneumonia has been found. We respect the family's privacy." But in Los Angeles, rumors spread faster than light. A skin doctor who once treated Keaton suggested an immune reaction might have caused her lungs to be attacked by her own immune cells. Another doctor said the skin texture on her shoulder matched tissue exposed to ultraviolet light, meaning side effects from the light therapy Diane had for years. A whispered detail among doctors made the story even more confusing. In 2024, Diane Keaton took part in a small UCLA study about immune system changes in former skin cancer patients. That report was never published. From Cedar Sinai's basement, news began to leak out. Editors from CNN Entertainment, NBC News, and ABC7 all ran evening stories on October 13th. Actress Diane Keaton passes away peacefully from pneumonia. No one mentioned the silver mark, the data lockout, or the missing tissue sample.
3 days later, the main forensic doctor who handled the autopsy quit his job. At his brief goodbye, he said only one thing. According to a colleague quoted by The Hollywood Reporter, that body didn't completely belong to any medical condition I've ever known. That night, Diane Keaton's file disappeared from Cedar Sinai's system. No statements, no explanations, only a few scattered notes, deleted messages, and quiet talks drifting through Beverly Grove cafes, where young doctors still wonder, was what they saw that night the body's final reaction, or something else being hidden? That question, like the silver shimmer on her shoulder, remains an unsolved mystery. And from there, those in the medical field began looking through Diane Keaton's health records again, not to argue with the death certificate, but to search for the illnesses never written down, the signs that may have pushed her body to the edge of medical understanding. The story began more than half a century earlier in a Hollywood that didn't yet know the word protection. In 1970, Diane Keaton was in her early 20s, a young face coming from Broadway. She didn't know that a routine checkup would mark the first dark point in her medical history. The doctor found a small dark spot on her right temple, which looked like a patch of makeup, but the test result came back cold and clear. Basal cell carcinoma, skin cancer. Back then, Hollywood knew nothing about sunscreen or safe lighting. Actors stood for hours under blazing halogen lamps, sweat and makeup mixing in the heat. Keaton was no different. One surgery on her shoulder, then another on her cheek, enough to leave faint scars on her face. Small scars, but for an actress watched in every detail, they became something she couldn't stop thinking about. After the surgery, Diane grew afraid of light. She covered her neck, wore gloves, wide-brimmed hats, even on set. Family members said that throughout the 1980s, she almost never went outside at noon. A Beverly Hills skin doctor once said her skin reacted to sunlight like that of a newborn baby. Just a few minutes outdoors could cause burns. The illness got better but never truly went away. In later years, Keaton had multiple light therapy sessions, treatments using ultraviolet light to prevent it from coming back. They kept her skin smooth but made her cells permanently sensitive to light. Half a century later, when her body was brought into Cedar Sinai's examination room, the sign remained. On her left shoulder, doctors found tissue with a hardened structure identical to early skin cancer spots. Under the microscope, there were no bacteria, no dead cells. The cells seemed to be waking up again, moving in unusual patterns. In an internal draft, the doctor wrote one short line: "Cannot confirm cancer, but cannot rule it out either." The words sound unclear, but anyone reading them understood. They described Diane Keaton's body itself, always on the border between healing and failing, between life and breakdown. Those who saw her in her final year all said the same thing: Diane had changed. In photos taken at her Los Angeles home, her skin looked almost see-through, pale, reflecting light like silver foil. Her manager said she wore gloves even indoors because the air hurt her skin. A UCLA skin doctor who looked at the photos suggested it was extreme sensitivity to light, a reaction seen in immune system problems after long exposure to ultraviolet light. But the story didn't end with her skin. In her book, Then Again, Keaton admitted that at 25 she suffered from bulimia nervosa, an eating disorder that quietly damaged her body. "I ate to fill emptiness, then punished myself," she wrote. For 5 years, she lived in a cycle of guilt hidden behind Annie Hall's charm. When Hollywood glorified being thin, Keaton was among the first to speak of that fear. Bulimia doesn't just harm teeth or the stomach, it leaves long-term damage on the nervous and immune systems. A UCLA elderly care specialist explained in the Los Angeles Medical Review, those who had bulimia may get weaker faster during breathing infections. They respond poorly to antibiotics and face higher lung problems. Public medical records show that in 2023, Diane was briefly in the hospital for long-lasting acute bronchitis, yet recovered surprisingly fast. Months later, her breathing got weaker, needing nighttime oxygen support. Still, at film premieres and fashion events, she looked bright, occasionally coughing but avoiding health questions. "It's just a mild cold," she said with a stiff smile. During the autopsy, her lungs showed tiny worn spots and enlarged blood vessels, signs of tissue repeatedly damaged and healed. One doctor later said, her body looked like it had fought too long, not just against illness but against itself. Though her official report said pneumonia, no one who saw those lungs believed infection alone caused her death. It was as if her body had simply run out of strength, like a machine that had been overworked for half a century. The most argued detail was in the final section of the early report. A sample from the right middle lung section was marked with a short note: "Foreign cell groups found, cannot identify source." These words appeared in no public record. They came up only through a leaked screenshot shared among hospital staff. A lab technician later said the sample disappeared from the system 3 days after being recorded. No copies, no signatures. CBS News quoted an unknown source saying the supervising lab doctor willingly quit that weekend. When contacted, he replied briefly by email, "Some body reactions go beyond medical description. I'm not allowed to talk more." Experts later told Vanity Fair that foreign cell groups might mean an extremely rare immune system mistake where lung cells changed their genetic pattern, making the immune system fail to recognize them. Some studies at Stanford had noted similar things, but never in elderly patients. Strangely, when asked, Cedar Sinai representatives said no samples were lost, but refused to release storage codes. In medicine, that kind of silence is more frightening than any answer. A doctor close to Diane quietly told Vanity Fair her body reacted as if it was still fighting back, as if it didn't want to stop. That statement silenced the room because the deeper one read into her records, the clearer it seemed that Diane Keaton's body hadn't simply died according to nature. It had tried to last, to renew, to continue in a way no one yet understands. With her tangled medical history from skin cancer and immune reactions to long-hidden disorders, Diane Keaton's death was not peaceful. It became an unsolved puzzle in medicine, a chain of mysterious body responses that could only be watched, not explained. Some doctors say it was just age, but in the files that disappeared and the sealed samples, something deeper remains. Something that make many believe that perhaps Diane Keaton didn't simply leave because of illness, but because her body itself created an ending no one could ever explain. And from those unanswered questions, new theories began to appear. From UCLA's labs to whispered talks in the hallways of Los Angeles hospitals about what really happened inside Diane Keaton's body, theories that even now no one dares to speak out loud. After the examination, Cedar Sinai stays silent. No statements, no press talks, no extra notes added to the medical file. 3 days later, every newspaper printed the same line, word for word. Cause of death, bacterial pneumonia. A clean, polished answer, as if everything that had just happened was nothing more than paperwork. But in Los Angeles's medical community, that silence felt colder than the news of death itself. A doctor who took part in the tissue analysis quietly told The Guardian, the signs on her body didn't match ordinary pneumonia. There was something else, something beyond traditional medical description. Those words, faint and easily lost among the flood of death reports, became a spark for unspoken theories among those who had read Diane Keaton's file. Gradually, across hospital hallways and cafes near Beverly Grove, 3 theories spread, like 3 pieces of a puzzle no one wished to complete. The first theory spoke of a delayed immune system reaction, a rare problem in which the immune system turns against the body itself. According to a leaked report from UCLA's lab, in her final days, Diane Keaton showed signs like a condition known as immune system lung death, the lungs breaking down from within without bacteria or viruses. In theory, the lung tissue was burned by her own white blood cells, causing fast breathing failure without outside infection.
A resident doctor told Variety, "Health collapsed without warning. No fever, no pain, no swelling, no skin damage. All vital signs just fell freely. During her last 24 hours, Diane was still awake. She talked, read news on her iPad, even smiled while watching an old interview of herself. But her blood oxygen dropped without warning. Her pulse got weaker and her heartbeat became irregular. Many experts believe the chain reaction could have been the result of decades of treatments, strict diets, light exposure, and immune boosters. A UCLA researcher said, her body was like a system that had fought too long. That defense system once saved her from illness, but then it turned inward and destroyed everything. The final photos of Diane, taken at her Beverly Hills home in September 2025, became images no one wanted to look at again. A hollow face, skin stretched thin as paper, deep sunken eyes. No one would think it was the face of a person with pneumonia. A breathing specialist said it was the clear look of a late-stage immune failure patient, when the body fades but the mind stays painfully clear. The second theory went further back in time, 40 years earlier when Diane Keaton was at the peak of her career and still believed that light could heal. In 1981, she had light therapy treatment for basal cell skin cancer, a new experimental method then promoted as Hollywood's beauty miracle. According to records from the California Institute of Skin Medicine, Diane went through at least 7 high-power ultraviolet sessions over 2 years. Each time she lay still beneath white-blue lights, her skin coated with a special light-sensitive solution, her body burning with heat. A treating doctor recalled to Los Angeles Medical Review, "She reacted very strongly from the first session. Her skin turned red, blistered, but she wanted to continue. She said, 'If it can save me from scars, I can handle it.'" She did recover, at least in the public eye. But that light-based treatment, like a double-edged sword, left behind small genetic changes that no one could measure. More than 40 years later, a research group at Stanford discovered something called photomutation, a form of DNA damage caused by ultraviolet buildup in tissue able to travel through the bloodstream to other organs, even the lungs. By chance, Diane had taken part in a UCLA study on immune changes in former skin cancer patients. That report was never released. An unknown lab technician told NBC News, Her lung cells reacted like skin tissue once exposed to light, as if her body remembered the light. That detail, seemingly impossible, matched strangely with the autopsy record. Her lung tissue glowed faintly under blue light, what doctors call glowing leftover, a remaining light chemical response in the cells. If true, then light had not only once saved Diane Keaton, but also returned in a way to take her final breath. The last theory, seemingly the most realistic yet hardest to prove, was a medication reaction in her body. According to Cedar Sinai's treatment records, during her final week, Diane was given a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Yet blood tests showed an extremely low amount, almost none. Specialists believe this was a direct result of the digestive disorder she had suffered for 5 years in her 20s. The long-lasting imbalance had damaged her body's ability to take in medication. When drugs aren't properly absorbed, they can cause chemical reactions in the blood, making rare toxic compounds. A pharmacist at Cedar Sinai told The Hollywood Reporter her blood sample showed a high lactate level. It was as if her body was creating its own poisons. In those last weeks, Diane changed noticeably. Her voice weakened, her skin paled, her hands always cold. A photographer who met her at an art show in Westwood remembered, "She walked slowly, a bit unsteady, but still smiled when the camera turned toward her. She didn't look sick, just faded, as if she was slowly disappearing." Doctors called it end-stage metabolism reversal. When the body turns against its own processes, medicine stops healing and becomes an enemy. And the immune system, after a lifetime of battle, no longer knows what to protect. All three theories, immune system reaction, light after effects, and drug metabolism, could be true or all could be wrong. But what they shared was absence. None appeared in the official file. No one dared to confirm, and no one wanted to be asked further. A forensic doctor present at the examination quietly told ABC Local News, "Some cases in medicine are better left in peace." Her body was one of them. They said when he spoke those words, his voice shook, not from fear, but from tiredness. Because perhaps he too felt that under the silent white lights of that hospital night, Diane Keaton might have left peacefully. Yet what remained on her body was anything but peace. It was the final record of a body that had fought all its life, where every cell seemed to hold memories of light, medicine, and fear. And perhaps to truly understand Diane Keaton's death, one must look beyond the hospital, beyond medical theories and cold reports, and return to where she lived, a quiet house in Los Angeles, where sunlight rarely came through the curtains, where a woman who never married learned to live alone with her own fears. It was there that Diane Keaton's real secret might still be waiting to be told. In 2025, when the world heard of Diane Keaton's death, Hollywood's lights still shined. Yet something quietly dimmed beneath that brightness. Television, online media, and social networks all called her by the same name, Hollywood's queen of the wide-brimmed hat. The phrase sounded elegant yet distant, like a polite goodbye to a legend long past. But for those who truly knew her, the death wasn't unexpected. They said Diane Keaton had been leaving this world for a long time. No one had simply noticed. Her red brick home sat tucked away on a quiet street in Brentwood, West Los Angeles, surrounded by old oak trees. The gray wooden gate stayed closed almost all year. Neighbors said they rarely saw her. Perhaps only that familiar figure each morning in a long-sleeved shirt, leather gloves, a white wide-brimmed hat, and two small dogs, Reggie and Clover, walking around her feet. She walked slowly, short steps, as if avoiding sunlight rather than enjoying it. Inside the house, according to Architectural Digest, everything was so neat it felt cold. No television, no music, no fresh flowers, only wooden bookshelves filled with notebooks, a piano beside curtained windows, and black and white photos covering the walls. Among them were faces that once belonged to her: Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, Al Pacino. Under dim yellow light, those old frames looked like memories refusing to rest. Woody Allen was the first to teach her how to laugh in the dark. In 1970, they met at the audition for Play It Again, Sam. Diane was tall and slender, with a ringing laugh, both awkward and charming. Allen loved that strangeness. They fell in love quickly, living in a small Upper East Side apartment in New York, surrounded by books, jazz records, and half-finished cups of coffee, the witnesses of a 3-year romance. In Woody's eyes, Diane was the only person who made me believe that intelligence and silliness can exist together. After their breakup, they continued working together. And then Annie Hall was born, the film that made America know the name Diane Keaton. The character Annie was her, openly, but unspoken. But from that point, Keaton became inseparable from Woody Allen's shadow. When Allen later faced controversies, the questions came back to her. She chose silence. "I'm not defending anyone," she said on CBS Sunday Morning in 2018. "I just don't want to add darkness to memories that were once beautiful." Her voice was quiet but steady. After that, Diane almost completely pulled away from the media.
Warren Beatty was another story, a fiery chapter. They met on the set of Reds in 1980. Beatty, then Hollywood's biggest star, was so magnetic, people said he could melt anyone with a look. But Diane did not melt easily. They argued, laughed, then argued again. Beatty, a perfectionist, demanded retakes for the smallest details. After each shoot, they stayed in the editing room talking about politics, philosophy, and the loneliness of success. When Reds won the Oscar in 1982, they separated. No one knew why. It was said Diane couldn't sleep afterward. She read until morning, drank coffee instead of water, and buried herself in work as if silence would eat her up. A psychologist told Los Angeles Times, "People under constant stress often have weakened immune systems. For someone with skin problems, it's a dangerous spark." Perhaps it was in those years that Diane's body began to show the cracks medicine would only later recognize. Then came Al Pacino. They met first in The Godfather, 1972. But nearly 20 years later, during The Godfather Part 3, they truly came together. Pacino was a living legend by then, and Diane an icon. They were lovers, soulmates, and rivals. She once said it was the most beautiful yet tiring relationship of my life. When she wanted marriage, Pacino refused. She left quietly, without anger. "I wanted to learn to love myself," she said, and later adopted 2 children, Dexter and Duke, on her own. From then on, Keaton officially chose being alone. Pacino still called her every year on her birthday. The last call in September 2025 lasted less than 3 minutes. "Al, I'm fine," she said softly. "It's just that the light feels too bright lately." Her voice was gentle, steady, not sad, but tired. Pacino later said he stayed silent the whole call, feeling as though he was speaking to someone far away, on the other side of the light. Since 2021, Diane had nearly disappeared from Hollywood. No more events, no more talk shows, only rare appearances at friends' photography shows. She still dressed the same: white hat, high-collared shirt, black gloves. Many called it the Keaton style, but doctors knew better. A Beverly Hills skin doctor said her skin had become so thin that even dim light could sting. She never went out by day, only worked at night. All communication was through email or messages. In 2023, she sold 2 properties in Malibu and Santa Barbara, keeping only the house in Brentwood. Most of the nearly $10 million went to the Los Angeles Conservancy for Architectural Preservation. A friend said that in her final months, Diane developed strange habits. She shortened her curtains to stop light from bouncing on the floor, removed mirrors from her bedroom, and lowered her home temperature to 18 degrees Celsius. She said, "The colder it is, the easier I can breathe." Her loved ones worried, but Diane always smiled, saying she was just tidying up the light. In August 2025, she unexpectedly wrote a new will, leaving most of her money to her 2 children and the Skin Cancer Research Fund. In a handwritten note to an old friend in New York, she wrote, "I've lived close to light for too long. Now I want to see if there's peace in the dark." Those who visited her in the last week said she was still clear-minded, still cheerful, still smiling. Only that, they said Diane's voice had never been lighter, as if her breath had grown thin with time. A close friend told people she seemed to fade away, not from illness, but from will. She wanted to leave while everything was still whole. Strangely, despite being alone, Diane Keaton never turned bitter. She kept her familiar wit, still wrote thank you notes to fans, still took morning photos. Just to remember that I existed. She told Vanity Fair in her final interview, perhaps that's why when Diane passed, many believe she didn't leave because of illness, but by choice. Her body stopped exactly when the light, which had defined her whole life, became too bright. And at that moment, the media erupted. From Los Angeles to New York, countless headlines began with the same question. Was Diane Keaton's death truly just from pneumonia? Because in a world where every record has a lock and every answer is sealed away, it's always the quietest things that people keep searching for. Perhaps Diane Keaton's final secret will never be written in any medical file. The missing tissue samples, the erased notes, the whispered memories all remain like echoes between two worlds, where science stops and where belief in the unknown begins. Her body may have stopped working, but the mystery within it still lives, silent, like the last bit of light reflecting off the white sheet that night. What do you think really happened to Diane Keaton? Leave your thoughts below and share your view. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next stories.